Premier Doug Ford and his Albertan counterpart are teaming up to study a new east-west pipeline and other trade infrastructure, signing agreements that aim to double down on energy security for this province. Ontario's Energy and Mines Minister Stephen Lecce joining us live now from Calgary as well. Minister Lecce, thank you so much for making the time. I know it's super early where you are.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Why is Ontario, I suppose, backing Premier Danielle Smith's push for an east-west pipeline to Tidewater, which currently has no public sector proponent, could take decades to build, rather than focusing on projects that are shovel-ready?
Well, I think our government is supporting self-reliance for Canada. This is a nation-building opportunity for us to end our overwhelming energy dependence on America. Ontarians depend on American natural gas and petroleum. That transportation of crude and materials that we use every day goes through the United States from Western Canada. It begs the question, after the Michigan governor has tried for years to close that line 5, at what point do we as Canadians sort of say enough? We don't need their resources. We certainly don't need their pipelines. We can do this ourselves, made in Canada solutions to some of the greatest challenges we face. And so if we want a more affordable and frankly reliable energy future, the signal we're sending today is we're going to work with any partner in the country, including the federal government, to build energy infrastructure that ends this bizarre export of a product to the United States where we're selling it at a discount. We could add billions of dollars to our economy and more funding for social infrastructure, for the things we care about as Canadians, health, education, et cetera. But we need a revenue source, and we're not going to raise your taxes. And that's why we think expanding and diversifying our exports is really critical to creating more jobs and to growing our economy.
It's unclear, though, from the text when work on building these projects will begin or by whom they will be built. What's your horizon for that in your estimation?
Well, the feasibility study is going to help us understand the pathway, the critical path, and ultimately who are the private sector investors that will drive this project forward. You're right. I mean, there's going to have to be a private sector delivery partner on this, but there's massive enthusiasm. And we're here in Calgary to take our message of Ontario's leadership in nuclear and clean energy and our commitment to growing our economy, one Canadian economy. And Ontario signaling that we're going to work with Western provinces when we build the pipe. It's our workers that are going to disproportionately benefit from our manufacturing partnership in this announcement. So for Ontario and for Premier Ford, this is about standing up for Canada and saying that we're not going to allow the United States to be so in the driver's seat of our economic destiny. And I think it was a very powerful moment to see an Ontario Premier stand with an Alberta Premier. That's not normally done in these moments, but we're in a war. And President Trump, I think, has disproportionate leverage over us. And so we're looking to build this in partnership, work with the federal government. They've signaled an interest in building pipelines to at least creating the framework to build a pipeline. But in the meantime, this feasibility study will help us understand what is the art of the possible between the province of Alberta and Ontario. How do we actually build for the future?
Just picking up on your point about finding a private sector proponent, we see this right now, for example, with LNG Canada on the West Coast, that one of the biggest barriers appears to be finding investors. And the text from the MOU, I'm just going to read it here. It says the study will consider all potential project funding options, including public-private partnerships. So does that mean if a pipeline project needs funding, Ontario is willing to subsidize it? Just how much money is Ontario willing to front?
Yeah, no. Ontario won't be building the pipe. We're going to be physically manufacturing the pipe, but we're not going to be subsidizing that project. This is one that the private sector will carry. But keep in mind, many investors in the energy sector who employ in nuclear in Ontario alone, 80,000 people. In hydro, thousands of Ontarians. I mean, we have such an amazing advantage in Ontario. But when you speak to the business leaders, the investors, the barrier isn't access to capital. The challenge is government legislation that is slowing down the ability to get to yes. I mean, the impact assessment laws and some of the federal legislation, it is by its design, and this is not a comment of the current prime minister, but the last government brought in bills that are slowing down investment. We've seen tens of billions of dollars leave the country as a consequence. So I'd argue to you the best thing we can do in government is create the framework and the incentivization for capital to flow to Canada, not away from us, because we're in a war and we want to attract investment that creates jobs for our families today and for our kids tomorrow. So I think this type of announcement speaks to a commitment to solve those challenges, work with the feds, remove the duplication, and get on with building because it
I
takes a
have
long time to do big things in Canada.
literally seconds left, but just really quickly, is Ontario willing to front money though to encourage a pipeline proposal?
That's not the proposal. What's before us is work together on a potential route, work together on finding investors, work together on benefiting both economies. And this agreement is not just about pipelines, it's about nuclear power. Ontario is selling small modular reactors to Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick. We are the first in the G7. It's going to create 20,000 jobs and over $40 billion to our GDP. This is about selling Ontario vehicles to Alberta into their government fleet. This is about standing up and working together in the interests of Canadians first. And I think that's why it's a special day for Canada.
Okay, Minister Stephen Lecce, I have to leave it there. I am out of time. Thank you so much for joining us on this early morning for you from Calgary. Really appreciate it.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.